What's up, guys? It is Modern Craftsman Monday. Today we have
John's got to do the radio voice Monday.
John, come on, let's do it. Do it.
Monday.
John, who do we have on today?
It's us.
No.
Oh, it's just us.
No, it's not. I'm not talking to Johnny. I'm talking to John.
Oh, Radio John?
Yeah,
Oh, Radio John.
That came out because I blacked out. And
It's just us on the podcast today. We had another guest cancel.
Seriously, they backed out like the day of the reminder, right, Nick?
Yeah, so
ever since
we have this little scheduling app that
ever since the Wang episode, everyone's bailing.
I think everyone's afraid. But we have this little scheduling app that goes out that lets people fill out a form. We have all the information. It automatically books them, etc. But it reminds them like a week in advance, and then I think 3 days, and then 1 day. And 2 weeks in a row now, when they got that reminder, they were like, oh, shit. And then they rescheduled. So might have to turn that feature off. Because I'm like, that was definitely something on my calendar. And this morning I woke up and now it's gone.
Yeah, I saw it as of last week.
But so today, it's going to be us. We're going to be chatting about, well, a bunch of stuff.
John,
we talk about John and other John and where John wants to take his company.
Yep.
Are you wearing sweatpants?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I have on a knee sleeve.
Oh.
Like a compression sleeve.
I use the word sweatpants, but I meant to say yoga pants.
Yeah, I have on yoga pants.
He's got Lulu's on.
Those look like the booty ones.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, okay.
TikTok ones?
Yeah, on podcast, I feel like I do a better job podcasting if I have on yoga pants and my butt feels good.
Well,
it puts me in the mood to podcast.
I mean,
little trade tip.
I don't think anyone can deny
out
that.
there.
I want to put a couch right there and have the podcast there, and I look at you guys on that screen. So I'm counting.
Yeah.
Are you gonna
try it with yoga pants on and tell me what you think?
You guys can't see my bottom half.
Well, with that said, this podcast is brought to you by Yoga
Lululemon. Oh,
oops.
We went for it. Unfortunately, they're not. It is brought to you by Duration Molding and Millwork. The internet has changed the world, and there's nothing like seeing and touching product and talking to manufacturers of the products face to face. And you can do just that Thursday and Friday, August 13th and 14th at JLC Live, New England in Providence, Rhode Island. I actually think it's August 12th and 13th for Thursday and Friday. But no big deal. We know what we're talking about. Regarded as one of the best trade shows in the country year after year, you owe it to yourself to attend. So be sure to check out Duration Molding, Siding, and Millwork products at booth 208, adjacent to Boral Building Products and Creative Elevations demo area. Hope to see you there. And to learn more about the Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com. And be sure to follow them on IG. I don't know about you guys, like when you envision a calendar, I talk about this all the time with my wife. When I envision a calendar, my calendar stops in August and restarts in September. So like if I were to draw a calendar out, I would start like I would think I was at the end and I'm restarting back in September. And I know that obviously has to do with school, but I just can't shake that. It's like,
yeah, I feel like mine kind of starts.
That's like where my Monopoly board,
yeah, mine revolves around school.
Pass go, collect $200.
Yeah.
Yeah, John, the girls are in camp, and they were in, I think, for a week or 2 weeks, and then we pulled them for 1 week because they were going away last week, and then they just went back until he was crying on Sunday night that she didn't want to go back to camp. And I kept asking her why, and she said because she has to walk too much. I was like, so you don't like camp because she's like, oh, we have to walk everywhere, and it's just so tiring. And I was like, all right, at least you're honest.
It's like Reed. Reed just loves to chill.
What's Nick? You how was the wedding?
It was good. It was nice. It was up on his family's farm, and I think he said that there was like 60 people that went
in Maine.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's where he's from.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was nice.
I should have crashed it. I was up there.
You should have. It Dude, it was funny. Doug was literally like emceeing his own wedding. Like,
Really?
all right, guys, yeah,
Really?
you guys sit. All right, it's time. Everyone, come over here. Sit. We're gonna get married. And just like so calm about everything. I'm like, he just doesn't like. He's just totally cool with everything going on. He's like, because he had an issue with one of the food trucks. He had a food truck show up, and he's like, yeah, the guy's ghosting us. And at the wedding, I'm like, you all set? Like, did you figure out the food truck? He goes, I don't know, maybe. I'm like, what does that mean? He goes, he said he was going to show up, but he also ghosted me for 3 weeks. And I was like, and then in the middle of the ceremony, I hear like an old like Chevy 350 motor coming down the driveway. I'm like, that's definitely the food truck.
It's like an
And
ice
sure
cream
enough,
truck music.
he had a
Was there only one food
he got
truck?
a food truck, an ice cream truck, a snow cone guy, and a creme brulee cart.
Wow.
Damn.
No, but it was a good time. We had a lot of fun.
Where were you, John?
I was up at Sebago. I took off Thursday.
Boys weekend?
Yeah. I recovered.
What's that?
It was like 14 of us to get together from college.
Every year, right?
Yeah. It's a long tradition. It was good. Go up Thursday, hit a couple of breweries. We hit, let's be honest, one brewery. I load about 20 pallets in my truck, take them up, and we burn them Saturday night. We golf Friday, and then hit the lake Saturday. Yeah, by the time
Did you do the river thing?
We've done the river like once.
Yeah.
It's good. They took pictures of me passed out at the bonfire. Just dude, get me to sit down long enough and I'm out cold.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And my wife wakes me up, you're like, you're being rude. I'm like, they're being rude. I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's like obviously I'm bored with this conversation and I'm sitting down, so I'm going to sleep.
So do you guys rent cabins or something there?
No, one of my good friends, he was the best man at my wedding. His parents got a place up there right on the water, and they rented it for years, and then almost got passed down to them by the people that they were renting from. So they bought it, and we've been renovating it over the years. Like they did the kitchen and floors, I did the roofs and the rubber roof, and a bunch of other stuff. So it's a great spot. I think it sleeps. There's a bunch of guys in the basement. Right through the dock every year, so I get a bed. So some guys sleep on the porch, floor, whatever. It's
Sounds like college.
yeah. Well, I mean, they stay up way too late. Like I was napping Thursday. I napped. So I could stay up till 1.
Would you nap every day if you could?
Yeah, like a little power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a couch in this office right over there. I'm gonna nap.
I could.
I feel like my naps would just be considered sleep.
Yeah, I feel like I would wake up after everyone's home. Like the
Yeah.
day's over.
I don't do like 15 minutes naps. If I lay down and I'm going to take a nap, it could easily be like 3 hours.
It all depends.
I'm like a child.
I can do that too, but there's days where I just need like 10 minutes
Yeah.
and I'll be recharged.
Do you set an alarm?
No. Unless I know I'm like crashing. Like if I go up and dive into my bed,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I was setting an alarm. But if I'm just sitting like on this chair and I need 10 minutes, I'll take 10. But
Yeah, I couldn't guarantee that I'd wake back up.
oh, I forget who it was. Is it SIG Roofing out of Colorado?
I don't know.
CIG? I thought it
I
was.
feel like we've talked about
Yeah,
him before.
I went out there and met with those guys. We did a talk for Fine Home Building and Keep Craft Alive a bunch of years ago. And I went to their office. Phenomenal office for a bunch of roofers. Like, I don't know if I want to stereotype that, but it was like beautiful. Like 2 stories, steel, super cool. And I forget their names, but husband and wife team have their own offices. And like at lunch, he like takes a nap for like an hour. Like he I forget what he does. Like either he starts roasting coffee before he goes into his office, so when he gets up, it's a fresh batch. Like he's got like this whole system down every day. Crashes, gets up, does his jam, and hey, it's teach there. It's funny. Like we talk about, a lot of people like to throw that way, like that word around. Wow, like work-life balance, and I really think it's at certain points in your life and during the year, some have precedence over the other. It's not going to be a balance. It's
right.
but
it's also not. It's not one or the other. It's
no. Well, there's 3 things.
has
It's
to be
like
both.
family, work, and then your personal health. And
Mhm.
I think all three of those can be neglected at any given time. I remember when I was training for a half Ironman, and I remember I went there and you felt like you're in great shape, and then you go and load your bike and your gear up, and then you see all these people that are stupid fit, and you're like, yeah, it didn't work out enough. But like the whole time leading up to that, you're like,
You felt like you're
either
number one.
no, either you're working out and you feel like you're not at work enough, or you're not
Oh,
home enough.
right.
And then when you're home, you're like, I'm not working out, or I'm not at work enough. So it's like this weird dynamic that I was like, A, my kids aren't ready for me to, be out for runs and 3-hour bike rides. They just didn't get it. Now they're older, so they could go ride with me and go run. So
Mhm.
I said that I would wait till I'm 40 and start it back up. I also told myself I'd have a better handle on my diet, so I wouldn't be carrying around as much weight when I run. But we're a work in progress.
The whole sleep thing's interesting. I just read Own the Day by Aubrey Marcus, the guy that founded On It.
Yeah,
So like the Alpha Brain stuff.
I got it ready.
And in it, it talks about, sleep. Yeah. And not sponsored. Maybe could be
Could
Aubrey.
be.
Hey, reach out, man. Um, but he talks about sleep and how, society has turned sleep into something that lazy people do.
Mm,
And it's like, and I certainly wasn't judging the fact that you could take I just couldn't take a nap. Number one, I wake up like shit. Number two, I would sleep too long. But he talks about, it just goes into sleep and how important it is, and how, like I said, society has turned it into like, only lazy people sleep 8 hours a night, or, take naps and stuff like that. But the reality is, just like you said, like the mental side of your mental health and just your physical health, it's enormously important. And recently, I forget who I was talking to, but we were talking about just like how many hours we put in. You open this up about your kids being away and you crushing hours and getting a ton done. But
easily till 9 o'clock every day. Like I look
yeah.
at my phone and I'm like, oh, it's already 8:30.
But do you feel like something else is you're compromising something else?
No, like
Like, I guess,
for
do
the
you say, man, I work till 9. I wish I could have got a run in.
I mean, there's always, but I did need to power through. Like I do look at this whole thing. Like you said, there's a time that resets in September for you. I
Mm,
feel like this is like the 3 weeks where I'm not neglecting my family. My
right.
wife's got her own thing. She honestly enjoys a little time without me. It's like it's the way I look at it. But it's like if I can crank out some hours
Right.
and catch up, that's so much more healthier for me. That my
Right.
mind is kind of, oh, I got all this done, and I literally have lists that I crank out and just bang. I hate when people like. There's some people that celebrate certain things. Like, oh, I'm celebrating this list. I made this list on paper, and then I put it into Google Docs, and then I labeled it, and then I dumped it into my calendar so it looks like I'm busy. And I do all this stuff, and it's like, dude, I sit there in 3 seconds at a red light, blast it out, and then I go hammer it out whenever I'm, you know, on the job or wherever I am. But it's just trying to get some office time in. I don't know. I feel like it's a perfect time for us to have this conversation about where I want this company to go and how I want to run this sliver of it. I feel good about it. And I want to get my head wrapped around all of it as fast as I can, why it's hot and heavy. And it's been a huge, huge couple weeks for me. But then like I'll roll into September. My wife said to me on the couch the other day, she's like, "You ready to coach 2 hockey teams this fall?" And I was like, "Oh my God." And it's just like the reality of it is like I'm gonna burn a lot of time. So I need to get all this out of the way now. We have longer
Yeah.
days. Like right now, July, August is like the maximum productivity we're gonna see for the whole year in my
Mhm.
eyes. Because you get the longest days, people are working later, and it's not cold. It's enjoyable to get up. It's not gray. So how do we maximize all of that? And I feel like you have a little bit of luxury that way. Like building inspectors are going to let stuff pass. They're not cranky either. I feel like you're
Right.
going to get stuff submitted and it's going to get approved faster. It's just, maybe it's me. I do try and put a positive spin on everything. People don't agree with that when I talk on the podcast, but I'm going to call bullshit when I see it. But it's, I don't know. I probably am neglecting something, but I'm always, like we said, we always are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I struggle with, where it's like, especially probably for the last year, I've really tried to make a more conscious effort about not overworking, being home more, being home more regularly, so I'm, home at the same time. I can, do dinner, help with the kids going to bed. Yes, there's a lot of times where then I'll go back to work after they're in bed and put in another, 2-3 hours. But more of my priority has turned to like, well, my time. It's like I'm gonna wake up early. I want to be able to work out. I want to be able to eat a good breakfast. I want to be able to like have a minute to myself and then get in my truck, where it's like before I'd wake up at 5:30 and I would be out of the house before 6 o'clock, grabbing a coffee, grabbing a breakfast sandwich, and right into work. And it was like I felt like I was in this whirlwind where it's just like I could never catch up because there was literally no other time. There was no time for me to do that. Where it's like when I start my day like more structured, where it's like, hey, this is my time. I'm not going to read emails yet. 7 o'clock, I'll look at my emails, but right now, like take a few minutes for yourself and put
It feels like
your health
you're being
as a
controlled,
priority.
right? When you have to get up, and I feel like
Yeah,
there's
because
days
you
where I
feel
need that, where I need to go at 6 and
totally, and
blast
there
out
like
stuff.
there's no doubt, like there's always going to be those days, but when if I wake up and it's like, say I wake up 15 minutes later than normal, it's like the fact that I'm already thinking that I'm late, when it's like I'm not late, I'm just starting my day later. But it's like like you just said, it's like you feel like you're being controlled by something, and
It happens.
you're
It's like I don't schedule. I play hockey Thursday nights, have beers till midnight. Yeah, I'm not scheduling. It's like college. I'm not scheduling 8 a.m. classes the next day. That's stupid. Because
I always
even
had
if I
8
show
a.m.
up,
Fridays.
what's that?
I always had Friday 8 a.m.s.
Yeah, well, like why? Like you can control that.
Because I wanted to work in the afternoon, and
Oh,
everyone said the same thing. It's like, you're an idiot. I'm like, it's a bullshit class. I'm fine.
yeah. So I would just like I'm not going to schedule meetings. If I have to, it's fine. I will if it
Yeah.
comes up. But I don't want to be controlled. We already are for the most part in so many ways. And people say, "Oh, we have the luxury of owning our own businesses and we have freedoms." We do, but at the same moment, man, when you got clients that aren't the best or are frustrated or whatever it is, it's a heavy toll on me. And it's also the fact that like if someone doesn't pay you on time, I feel like I don't spend money when I know a client's not paying me, the company. It's just
Yeah.
this weird like immediate like tapped into my vein where I have to deal with it. So it's like there's certain points where I'm trying to get through something or work through something where I'm like, dude, keep hammering away at the same pace. This is me when I walk with my wife. When I go uphill, I don't change pace. Like if I'm on level ground, I go at the same pace and going uphill. So I always like break away from the missus and the dog whenever I go uphill. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This is just me." So I do the
Even
same
when you're
thing.
out for a casual stroll.
Oh, dude, I don't have a limit. Like it's just how I am. But it's the same thing. It's like I want to keep going. Meaning if I have this dilemma I'm working through, whether it's a detail on a project, I challenge myself at that same point to keep up the same pace as if I'm going uphill. Like that shouldn't take away from my workload. So then I'm like,
Mhm.
as soon as I work through that, guess what? When I'm done with that detail or that issue or that concern, my bandwidth is going to increase tenfold because I was able to keep up with everything else I was doing. Where I feel like everyone else just goes home at 3.
Right.
I guess you also need a balance in your life, and that pertains to sleep and your personal life and relaxation and kind of stepping away from the job as well. I mean, I listened to a podcast a few months ago now. There was a medical podcast, and it was basically digging into the ill effects and the um, negative health effects of not getting enough sleep or not, disengaging from your work. And everyone right now is promoting, grind it out and sleep when you're dead and work, 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 which is part of what we do. It's part of our business. But I have realized recently, in past years, and it's tough to maintain that. I feel like I'm always implementing it and then kind of falling back towards where I was before, but um, just trying not having something aside from work and then turning work off, because it's really difficult to turn work off, like you were saying, John. If I have an issue at work or something I'm trying to sort through, it's very difficult for me to step away from
It
that.
takes up headspace,
Um,
right? I'm not saying like
yeah,
I'm
like
writing stuff out, but
no, it's almost easier to figure it out than to sit there and dwell about it for the next 12 hours. It's just like, all right, well, let me take an hour and sort this through with my head, and then I can walk away from it at that point. But you definitely, obviously, John, you have part of your personality is go, go, go. You feel accomplished when you do more in a day. And that's not to say that you're not getting enough rest, but you definitely need, and I know that I need something to be able to step away from, or to get some rest, or to get some sleep, because I think that if you do work at that pace and you don't get enough rest, or you have nothing to basically disengage from yourself and your mind from work,
Right.
that you're going to get sick, you're going to get exhausted, you're going to get tired, you're not going to be putting your best effort in, your efficiency is actually going to come down at some point. Not saying less efficient than if you weren't to do the work at all, but just at some point, your body and your mind can't keep going at that rate.
it's true. I feel like my whole first 5 to 10 years of my career, everyone I met that was older than me was like, "Don't get burnt out." I just
Yeah.
don't know what they were seeing with my frantic pace and my if you want to call it drive or stupidity that they were seeing that they kept warning me of, and it does
I mean,
happen.
all of us are obviously, I would say, above average when it comes to drive and what we want and the amount that we work, which I think is pretty much par for the course for being self-employed. But we do need somebody, and for me, it's my wife who steps in, and you have to take a break, you have to get some sleep, you have to take some time off, we have to get away, whatever you have to do. That it can't just be all work, and obviously family comes into play and everything else, but just from a physical standpoint, like, you need to give your mind and your body a rest from all this crap.
Yeah.
Even when I was having, like, last year, I had those 2 allergic reactions, um, and never found out what it was, what caused that, and it nothing really made sense as far as what I had eaten, what I was working with. I worked with the same materials before and after, ate the same things before and after. When I was going into anaphylactic shock, it would be like, one time I hadn't even eaten, and then another time, it was the middle of the night, and the only thing that makes sense to me was that I was so run down that my body was basically thinking it was, allergic to something. Something was attacking it, and fighting an allergen that wasn't really there. And that's basically why it happened. So since then, I have made a conscious effort to try and get some sleep. Because for a long time, it'd be like 4 hours a night, 3 hours a night, 5 hours a night, consistently, night after night. And your body learns to run like that, but it's actually not healthy at all.
You bring up a great point. You almost get in these cycles. Like you
Mm.
get in this run of like 6 a.m.s and then you roll with it. And that's why I do try, and there's certain days where I'll sleep in till like 8, which sounds crazy on um a work day, but it's like if that's the whole point of the okay. I thought about this. Like, what's the point? Why not just run everything myself? Just
Mhm.
scale down the projects or scale up a project to do it, and
Mhm.
that's it. But it really comes down to wanting a little bit of freedom.
Right.
The employee, the PM or the superintendent is to be a set of eyes where if I want to catch my kid's game or if I want to coach, that's where it comes down to. Like I look at it like with Jeff Sweener, a couple other guys that once their kids have graduated, they go back to this industry almost like a second wind. And then they hammer out because now they've got all this wisdom, they got all this knowledge, they've seen everything. It's like going back to high school. Everyone's, oh, I would have killed it with the ladies with what I know now. It's like the industry. It's like you get to go back now, not have a distraction, but now you can put everything into it that isn't like I know like when the hockey season hits, it's like even lacrosse. Lacrosse is the worst time of year for me, spring. because I'm still playing and still coaching hockey. Lacrosse is still starting, and that's 4 times, 5 times a week. And it's an absolute nightmare because I know I have no time. Knowing that you have no time in the day to get stuff done it makes me the most panicked.
Right.
Because
And
it's
you end up
like
getting less done because you're so panicked about it.
100%. And so I try to avoid that. Like knowing that situation's coming or whatever it is, like knowing September's rolling in, it's like, all right, like knowing it's August already, I was like, oh my God. And it's just, so it's like, how do you put the right systems in place? And if that means working with certain PMs to really buckle down on what I'm finding right now is just, there's a sense of urgency with trying to get productivity done. But there's this disconnect on the cycle of like people, we invoice every 2 weeks. People want to get paid. So you have to have this internal clock. I think I said this in the last podcast, is an internal clock that, hey, this person's been here. This crew's been here for a week and a half. It's not the game of, hey, if they don't invoice, we don't have to pay them. It's like, no, they have the same payroll issues and insurance and overhead that everyone does. So you can't be oblivious to that. It's like being proactive. It's like, hey, you've been here for 2 weeks, or you're approaching 2 weeks this week. Hey, make sure, even if it's a text, send me a text on the amount. I can get it, input it into QuickBooks. Before I send that QuickBooks invoice, I have to have your backup, because we accompany every invoice with the backup. I go, otherwise I got to pull it. And how I just did that is I anchored it on the contractor. It's not like otherwise this is how it goes. Hey, can I get a check on Friday? Now they've anchored it on me.
Yeah.
I have to be the one at that point to go, all right, I'm going to cut a check from my savings account or profit to cover this guy. And I don't have an invoice. I can't put it even into the next cycle. So how do I'm reacting to that situation. So if I'm going to be a good PM or owner or whatever it is that's running a project, let's just put it that way, whatever your title is that I need to be cognizant that how long people are there for. Like when board gets dropped, all right, did I invoice for that? Because I could have had that amount ahead of time. And then the next one is like, it's going to take them 2 weeks to plaster. So, hey, dude, give me that number, give it. And just ping them. Dude, people appreciate that. And it makes it flow better. And then it's not like you have to, I guess I want people to understand, you don't have to go around to every job and asking people for invoices. It's really, once you get the cycle down, no one has an issue with it. It's like, hey, I need to get this done. But there's times where I look at, like I just saw an invoice that I'm reviewing QuickBooks, and I saw an invoice going for a roofer. The roofer's been done for, I can't tell. This is the bundle of shingles roofer. Okay.
Yeah.
How long ago was that? And that's just making it into the client. And I'm like, so if the PM's not doing that, and I have to, again, responsibilities, if it's on me, then come September, if I want it to be a shit show in September, it's on me, because I haven't made any corrections leading up to that. So, this whole month we're trying to focus on cash flow for people that haven't focused on it in a while, or ever. Maybe they've had companies and they haven't really. I feel like that when they're PM, some people that have run a company, they feel like they get to step back a little bit. And
I also don't think that many people understand the way that cash flow works in a business if they haven't been in on the financial end of it. Sure. It's always, I think a lot of times if there's work happening, people assume that there's money being made, and that cash flow shouldn't be an issue.
We're all just making so much of it that we have surplus.
Yeah.
Right?
Just give them the spare bank account. So I had a customer, I guess a couple of weeks ago, somebody I hadn't worked for before. They came to me as a referral from somebody else who I also didn't work for, but they had been to somebody's house that we had done work, and I guess spoke with them. So it was kind of a referral from a referral, and they needed some small work done, like retrofitting a kitchen cabinet to fit some new appliances. And I kind of blew them off for a while. They live in a nice town. They live in the town I grew up in. They obviously have the funds to afford what I do, but it was one of those jobs where you have to put so much head work into it, and you're kind of working backwards with existing cabinetry. And I was like, I don't want to dig through all these specs to see what the existing cabinet looks like, what the openings need to be, how I need to fix this, if I can make the drawer work. It's almost like I know that the box can fit what we need to do, but I'll just go in and do it. So I just told him basically I'll work hourly for you and gave him my rate. It's a half day or full day. Went out there, worked 6 hours, made a decent day rate. They were super happy with everything. And then a couple weeks ago, they called me or texted me that there was water coming in through their living room ceiling, and they called a roofer. The roofer said they don't do repair work, that they need a GC. And so I said, all right, well, let me get my roofer over there. So I get my roofer over there. He basically explains what's going on. There's going to be interior work too because it's come into their living room. So at this point, I told my roofer, I was like, listen, I have interior to do here. I want you to run everything through me. So he met with the customer. And then I was like, I'll deal with the rest of it. I'll deal with scheduling, with all of that, because I've worked with them before. And now that there's interior work, I just want to handle that scope. I'll mark your number up. He's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll send everything to you. So basically, I wanted to get the exterior work done first, cleaned up, and sorted out before I start doing anything inside. And I go over there. Like the next day, she texted me that um, her master bathroom shower is leaking into their garage, like completely separate. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna not go to my other job. I'll come over. I'll get your leaks taken care of. Take a look at the interior work, and I fixed the garage issue. And then she's like, can you just check this ceiling real quickly? It's bowing some, and I feel like it maybe just needs to get sucked up. And I was like, all right. So I go in, I put a drop cloth down, I bring some plaster washers in. I was like, I don't know how dry the ceiling is at this point. If the drywall is like cupped, it's going to be hard to suck it up. And I just touch it, and like a 2 foot section of the ceiling falls down. And I was like, oh, I had meetings to go to. And like, I didn't intend on touching anything inside. I just wanted to look at it, make sure like what we were looking at as far as work moving forward. But my main concern was fixing her bathroom leak and getting her roof sealed up. So I was like, I have to go to meetings, but I'll come back and I'll bubble off this area for you, because you could tell there was mold. It had been leaking for a while. So I leave. I go to my meetings. I stop. At this point, I have like 2 other jobs going on, so I really wasn't looking to start anything. I pick up site protection. I go pick up like plastic that I need. I set up an area in there, buy like a little cheap air scrubber to run in there, and I demo her ceiling when I get back. I cancel my dentist appointment because I was going to be late for it, like stay at their house super late so I could get like her family safe, dried in, all the mold killed, removed, and at least at that point, like not have to worry about them being exposed to all of that. Um, so when I leave there, she's like, "Let me know what the roofer says." So I hear back from the roofer, and he's like, he wants $4,500 to basically rip off the roof, replace a couple of sheets of plywood, install new roofing, and it's just one section of roof that like doesn't tie into anything else. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna charge her $6,000 for me to basically coordinate, get him over there. Not any of the interior work. That was just like my markup on his number to deal with all of this. So then I like don't hear from her for a while. And I was like, all right, she has a hole in her roof. There's huge storms coming in. And I was like, hey, I need to let you know, you need to let me know if you want to schedule Jason. He's got to get materials dropped, schedule it. You have a temporary patch on your roof, but I wouldn't want more damage inside. And I still don't hear anything. But like prior to this, I get like instant responses to text message, phone calls, all of that stuff. So finally I was just like, this lady is straight up trying to like price shop me right now. After she called me, I get my roofer there, I clean up, and I'm like, that's the only reason I haven't heard from her. So then finally I was like, hey, listen, um, if I don't hear anything by the end of today, tomorrow morning, I'm going to come break down the job site and clean up and get out of there just because I have too much stuff going on. And she's like, oh, sorry. I don't really know how this works. Like, I didn't realize that we couldn't choose the roofer that we used. And I was like, well, you could have chosen the roofer had you guys gone out and just hired a roofer. But at this point, I've worked for you before. You called me, I sent my roofer over. I'm not like, I have to follow the roofer up and patch the ceiling and warranty my work, warranty the roofer's work. I'm not just gonna like pick any roofer of your choosing. And so she's like, well, can I pay this on credit card? Jason said, who's the roofer, he said that I can pay on credit card. And I was like, well, I don't take credit card, but if it helps you out, how about you pay like 50% of the job to him and then you can pay the rest of it to me? So I send her his invoice, which is like $4,500, pay $3,000, and she's like pissed that I'm making $1,500 on the job. And I don't know, prior probably would have explained more what goes into that and everything else, but I'm like, I missed a dentist appointment. I got my roofer over there, got the roof done within like a week, patched you in temporarily, bubbled off your house, all of this stuff. Like, I should easily be making $1,500 on that. So she basically is frustrated that, I'm not, in her mind, not doing any work but making money off that job. And then is very, when it's time to get paid, is kind of beating around the bush, harder to get a hold of. I'm still not done the work there. But the roof got done and everything else. And then I sent her some invoices, said that she didn't get them. So I'm like, just annoyed, basically wanted to go break down my job site and be like, hey, your roof's done, the inside, the mold and everything's cleaned up. Like, you can get somebody else to finish the job at this point. But I don't think that that's the necessarily the right thing to do. But it got me thinking about basically how important trust is within like the contractor homeowner relationship, and that at this point now, I don't want to work for people who don't trust me or don't trust what I'm doing or don't trust that I'm being fair with my time, because it just makes for this, like, the entire situation. I don't want to be there. They almost don't want me there. And if you can't trust that I'm being fair with you, it's just I don't really want to work for you anymore. And how important that is in every aspect of our job with customers who we deal with. And I know that that's a super long story to get to that point, but it really got me thinking that like all of my good customers right now and all of my repeat customers are customers who basically have enough faith in what I'm doing and faith in my pricing and faith in our structure that they trust us to do what we have to do, and they're not like micromanaging or questioning every single cost that goes into a job.
Dude, I walked away from a whole house this past year. I had worked with them on finding a property because they wanted to move into our Ivy custom. It was a spec and they couldn't. And so we looked at properties. I didn't sign them up for pre-con. What I should have. But we walked a bunch of properties to figure out which one would work for them. Then they finally bought a property in Weston. I was like, great, I'll stay involved with, pre-con and kind of, they picked an architect with Weston, picked a civil guy. All that stuff was kind of their group because it was a historic house. And I totally agree with them. I was like, you should do this. Go with the people from Weston because it's not like it's easy submit and go type of situation.
Yeah.
So I think I'm worked with them off and on for a year. Okay. Drawings get done. Cool house. I like the design. It's not 100% me, but I get it. And I want to challenge myself and take it on. And I think I told this before. We get into asbestos just to get the ball rolling. And it's an old house, historic, obviously. And we get it tested by my usual asbestos guy. I have two guys, girls, whatever you want to say. And we get it tested. And he's like, gee, honey, this thing's hot. And I'm like, okay, lay it on me. He's like, must have been a mason that lived there because all the interior plaster is hot and all the exterior stucco is hot. And I'm like, what's the damage? He's like, 28G. Dude, it's usually between, like, I have like a range. It's always like 2 gram $5,800.
Yeah.
Always. A couple window sashes, a couple spots with basement tile, whatever, mastic, blah, blah. So I go back to them. I go, hey, and I totally get it. This would be the time to price check and get a second opinion as if it was, a doctor. So they go about, I was like, yeah, we'll call somebody else. And they had already called somebody. Okay. They call somebody. This guy comes in, never met him, and tests the house and says,
Did they tell you that they called somebody?
they didn't at that point. We just said, I'll make some calls and get somebody else in just to get, validate it. And they brought some other guy in. Cause again, I wanted to, like everyone says, you're not paying me for, what I'm doing. It's for what I know.
Right.
Yeah.
10 years leading up to this. And so then she comes back and goes, hey, this guy came back with this test and everything that your guy says is positive is negative. And then he found some other spots that are hot. And I'm like, that's usually not how this goes. Like, there's no way I can understand, like, maybe it's not one thing, but to be the complete reverse of what the
Yeah.
test is. And so then they're like, what do you think? And she's calling like the lab, because I send them everything. So she's like calling the lab. And then I'm like, all right, let's have a meeting there with both parties. And we have a meeting and let's just have everything tested at the same time. Everyone tests the same surfaces. And my guy pulls up in, like, I'm not saying anything, but a lettered truck, blah, blah, collared shirt. Their guy pulls up in like a Civic with like missing hubcaps, like shirt on top. I'm like, yo, this is who we're trying to bring credibility to a test. And so I just said, honestly, I think we should just bring the EPA in, have them test it. They will basically, because now it's against two different labs. Which one has issues? I've never done a deep dive on asbestos in my life.
Yeah.
This deep. And so I do the whole thing, and the EPA comes in, does their own test, and find out that it's exactly matches what we came up with. And this guy was just doing this little pony show to go, hey, no, this is what we do, but we also do the remediation. So they wanted to get this way around it. And I was more trying to figure out, hey, if the house is this hot, is it worth dismantling these surfaces, or do we? That's why I was already in talk with the EPA. Is that, do we just crush the whole place and deem the whole thing as hot, and have it bagged and tagged, and Clean Harbors take it? Is that more efficient than having staging set up and taking all the outside stuff off? And then I was like, I sat down and thought about it, and having the time to be able to think about stuff like this and not being torn apart 100 different ways is like, I go, this is the tip of the iceberg. And they don't trust me. They don't trust my network. They don't trust any of that stuff. And I was like, I'm done. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I know we built up a year here, but I don't see the next year going the way I want it. And I want to put my people in that harm's way. And I didn't. And so we went our other way. And I look back at them like, oh, right call. Like, they haven't even started framing. I drive by, haven't started framing. And the products that I did get in place of that are great. And, and it's like, how do you, there's been years of my career where I've been so immersed in it that I've probably missed that, recognizing that situation.
Yeah. It's funny because usually once you work with somebody, whether it's small or large, but at this point, I was in their house with their kids for a full day. Like, their daughter drew me a picture and hung it in my truck, like was hanging out with Polly, did what I had to do with them. They were extremely happy. And it's like, at that point, you've earned the trust. And like, I trusted them that basically they would have faith in me. And I rescheduled my job. I switched up my schedule, let my other customers know what was going on, canceled a dentist appointment, ran around like a madman, stayed there till 8 o'clock at night, and got everything together and sorted out and said, here's the price. And I was going to make $1,500 on, which is like 30% or something on that markup for like the aggravation that was going into it.
But imagine if that was, sorry to cut you off. Imagine if that was an insurance job.
It is an insurance job. They like contacted their insurance, and I was like, I don't deal with the insurance. If you need,
no, but if they called like ARS or whatever it is,
oh
dude,
yeah,
they would
how
have
much
flooded that place with stuff, and they would have billed it all, and it would have been like a $100,000 project.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and you're saying all this, and I'm looking at my desk, looking at like my construction calculator, my mouse, and like if I knew the markup that was involved in all the pieces of equipment that's in front of me,
Yeah.
I'd be. It's the nature of the beast. The
Dude, it's
sneakers I have on are
Exactly.
probably a 300% markup.
it's funny that you say that. You guys ever watch Shark Tank?
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
So like they're on there and they're talking about products or service or whatever, and they always talk about markup.
yeah.
And
Like, what's it cost you?
yeah, what's it cost you? Oh wow, you're making that good. Like you're
$6
making
today.
70% markup. That's pretty decent. And I'm like, pretty decent, guys. Like, does anyone want to go on there and talk about their construction company and see if they want to
Yeah.
invest in that? And it's and it's the same thing with these. I'm not going to use specific brand names, but like these German kitchen manufacturers, like these like high end luxury modern kitchen manufacturers over the seas. Some of that stuff comes in at 400%,
Easily.
and it's like, and then they're turning around, like the client's paying 400% markup for what it's built over in the UK. And I get it, like it's a manufacturing plant, like, and they're making thousands of them, but it's like, and then people squawk at us trying to make 20%,
It's
which
because they can see us. I think it's because we're tangible and that they see what we're doing, and
but
this
I
is how
think
I put my head around it.
but and this is where I constantly challenge like myself and even like we're doing small projects and things like that. It's like our markup needs to be bigger for that, and then when it comes into question, it's like, no, you're like you said it earlier, John. It's like you're not paying me for the time that you're not paying Tyler for the time he went there to go and bubble the ceiling and get everything in place. You're paying him for the know-how to get that done as quickly and efficiently as possible. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
exactly, Nick. That's what went through my head, and like initially for the work, I'm thinking like because I had billed them time and material before, I was like, this is what I could charge them for them because I've set up enough jobs at this point that it's like I need to run to my shop and I need to grab this, and this,
Right.
and I have all that stuff there. And then I knew what I had to go get from the store. And then I knew, everything that I need, even as far as like an air intake for the filter. And then I have my roofer on the other end of the phone who gets out there that day. And like I have your roof completely replaced within, I don't know, 6 days or something. I had it patched so that no more water would come in. And I had your room bubbled off and isolated within 12 hours of you calling me. And like the fact that you're not going to trust me because or you're upset because I'm making $1,500 on getting that done for you that quickly was like honestly, I wanted to just go over there, break down my stuff, and be like, I'm out of here
Yeah.
because it's just, even the fact that I cancel and like they knew I had a dentist appointment. I was like, that's fine. It's no big deal. I want to get you guys closed in, but I have to be gone by this point. And when I wasn't gone at that point, they're like, don't you have a dentist appointment? I was like, oh, I canceled it. So they knew.
Right.
And
The
like,
problem is like I think we as in contractors don't always do a great job explaining the value behind what we're doing, and that's why
yeah,
they comes into question. Where it's like,
but like she couldn't even get a roofer there.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Like if it was on you,
but
you
Tyler went to
still
her like, but she did. She
yeah.
called you and you got it done.
Exactly, but then, like, she doesn't wanna pay for that,
Well, the thing, it's like the argument that comes up, we, we, we don't run into this a lot, but like I've definitely had a client question. It's like, why am I paying for supervision and a markup? It's like the markup's my overhead and the potential profit I'll make on this job. Supervision,
Have
it's a
you done
job
business
cost,
in Massachusetts?
huh?
Have you done business in
Yeah,
Massachusetts? It's
right.
not cheap.
And it's like, well, yeah, for the overhead. But it's
Yeah.
like, if you're paying for supervision, it's like, well, that's part of overhead. It's like, no, if I didn't
No.
have jobs, I wouldn't have a supervisor. And it's
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
when someone someone explained it that way, where they broke it down, when we were structuring like what our markup was going to be, it's like you have to think of it really clear cut as to if you didn't have that job or jobs in general, would you have that expense? It's like, if you didn't have any jobs, would you have carpenters? It's like, well, no, I wouldn't have carpenters because I wouldn't have any work for them. Right. So their job cost. It's like, would you have a site super? It's like, no, I wouldn't, because I don't have a job for them to supervise. And and going back to my point is like, I think that we constantly are when we are challenged, we do a bad job. We almost become defensive. Like we're in our conversation right now is kind of on the defense, but it's like, how do we shape that conversation, immediately, where like you do get that, that untrust with with the potential client, and be able to correct that conversation for them to explain for them to understand the value in which you're bringing. Like, hey, like you said, I was out here in 12 hours. I got this all taken care of. It's taking me some time. Like, yeah, I wouldn't have to run back to my shop if I didn't have this job. So
But
me
dude,
driving back.
they cut the line straight up. Like, try and find anybody right now. They cut the line. So there's like, if you go to Disney,
Right, which I
you
mean,
get in
yeah,
line.
Yeah, you want the speed
If you want the
pass?
speed, they're not
right,
giving it to you.
right. But even like, yeah, I mean, I think that, like, from there's definitely an opportunity cost there where you could charge more for getting there faster. But even just at the simplest, at the core of it, it's like, these are the things that you had to do in order for that job to be to get that job done.
Exactly, and even, like, the rapport that I have with my roofer to get him over there that quickly, where it's, I'm not wasting his time. And how many years have I been in business that have like a handful of decent subs where, the customer at that point calls a roofer and then calls another roofer and then is trying to get another price, and she can't even get people out there to look at it. And it's like, well, yeah, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for my experience,
Right.
for the network that I have. I can't just, lend that to you for no cost. And at that point, I have other work that's going to be done there. I'm managing the roofer. I'm ensuring everything's on the up and up, that things are cleaned up, that I get there when they set up. It's not like, hey, yeah, I'm just making money on this and selling it and walking away from it. And I think the most frustrating part for me is, like you said, Nick, having to justify your costs, which years ago I would have written this long, drawn out email explaining what goes into it and why my costs are the way they are. And at this point, it was basically, hey, I get a better number from my roofer than you would get if you cold called them, and I have a markup on all of my subs that's between this and this, and like nothing else went into that conversation because I don't want to have to justify what I'm doing. Like, you called me in an emergency and I made it happen and I switched my whole schedule around. And like, you should be gracious at that point, especially because I am being fair. And maybe yeah, maybe there's somebody who does that for like a $500 markup on it. But like, you don't have that person in your back pocket. So I'm the contractor that you used before. I'm the contractor that you call. I'm the one who cleaned the inside of your house up. So that's just the cost that's associated with it. And the fact that you don't trust me and you're looking to like price shop that after I'm already set up in your house just makes me, again, just want to go take my stuff and get out of there and be like, here, you guys, if you have this handled and you know who to call, then go ahead and do that.
Right.
I'm past the point now where I want to have to justify what I'm doing. For 10 years I tried to justify what I was doing, where I am, what my cost is, what my price point's going to be, and I don't want to have to feel as though I've done that. I want to feel as though, I've earned my keep and I earned my rate, and I understand that maybe it's a little bit high, but I also believe that I am offering something more, and I don't want to feel like I have to justify that to people.
Yeah. It's frustrating. It doesn't make the job, like, it doesn't make it fun when you're constantly trying to justify what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I could see if I was like, raking it in and
Even if you were, it's
um
like if you're like there should be no shame in that.
no, but like it's not as if I'm going around ripping people off,
No.
right? And like that's the way that these people made me feel as
Right.
though
And it's
and they gave me like the sob story about how they're not the typical family from this town and she works and her husband
oh yeah,
works and she should
no
have
one's
married
ever
somebody
from
with
that
more
town.
money.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, so what am I supposed to do? Like if I can make X amount working on my job, why would I pull off my job and go do your
Right.
house?
For as a favor.
Yeah, like I don't it that doesn't make any sense. Like I have bills to pay. My wife works.
Mhm.
I'm not like it's not just you at this point. But the whole trust thing, I realize, my best customers, the jobs that I enjoy the most are with the customers who trust us and who know how to be customers, who know how to basically hire people within the service industry and give us a long enough leash that we can do what we want to do. And to be honest, those people get the best pricing from me as well. Like if somebody busts my balls and is a pain in the ass and like
You go for
just
hey,
wants to micromanage everything,
yeah,
I'm not like I'm not going to cut you any breaks at that point.
no.
If I have a customer who's lovely and pleasant to deal with, greets us, super kind, super generous, super gracious, then like I'll let some stuff slide at that point. I'm not going to let stuff slide if you're just an asshole.
Right.
Like that's what blows my mind about people that they don't understand. Like they think that they're going to get a better service by being a pain in the ass. And it's like, no, if you just let me do my job and you were gracious and you were kind, you'd actually get a better product, probably at a better
Right.
price. But I know that you're a pain in my ass. So,
You're gonna pay for every dollar
yeah.
that goes into this job.
I had a customer back in the day. he he was so annoying. It was when I first went into business and I had to work for whoever wanted work done and like he would be behind me while I was working. At one point I had my plumber hooking up his freestanding tub and the plumber calls me. He's like, "Yo, what the hell is wrong with this dude? He's underneath the tub with me right now." And he's one of those dudes. Um and it's just like he got to the point I stopped working for him eventually once I got busy enough that I didn't need him, but his name was uh, Brandon. And basically, I made up this rule that anytime that he questioned anything I was doing, like in the bidding process of the job, that I would just add money to the job. And he would be like, "Wait, why did the price just go up?" And I'd be like, material costs just went up." Because I was like, he's so annoying that and the amount of questions, I'm like, I somehow have to limit the amount of questions. But you could tell he couldn't get anyone else to work for him, so he was kind of screwed. But I'd just be like, all right, another dumb question, that's $200. And eventually I told him to take a hike. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry. I'm moving on.
John, you said something earlier.
I apologize
For
for whatever I said.
no,
Oh,
you opened it up and you said that you feel like this is perfect timing to talk about where you want your business to go. And I'm curious at
Oh no, no.
what that.
I think it's the perfect time for me to make strides on how to get there.
But
Like,
let's talk about that. I feel like last week we somehow got on into my business. So let's talk about yours.
well, yeah, I think we did. Is that I would like to be able, it all. I think this all depends. I think we get a lot of DMs and people doing work that they have to do to sustain whatever lifestyle they have.
Hmm.
And I think that at a certain point, whether it's like Ben and I would do 7 jobs at a time. Some would be at the tail end, some would be starting, a couple in the meat and potatoes part. So you'd have 7 active jobs. Is that ideal? No. So I think just like everything else, you get in these cycles. Like I remember when I was younger, I'd do like rip a single garage off, and then I'd do it, mudroom edition with the 2-car garage, a 3-car garage with a family room above. You do one of those, you do like 10 of those in a row. And then you do like kitchen, you do like 10
Right.
of those in a row. And I feel like in the beginning, we took products because we had to take projects. We didn't take them for the ideal percentages or the ideal management numbers. And I do want, I mean, obviously it got us a launching pad, but at the same moment, it's like, should I have just held out longer and just found the right ones? But you can't. Like, I needed to get work in the beginning, and we took, like, Ben and I were supposed to work side by side. Okay. Just like the old days. And the first 2 jobs we got, one was Brookline and one was Dover, Mass. 2 different universes when we're talking about stuff. And we never thought we'd have 2 different divisions. And that's kind of how the company's been shaped based on work. Not like, hey, I wrote a whole business plan out. This is what we're doing. This was like, hey, this is the work that came in. This is how we're shaping the company.
Mm-hmm.
So I reacted to that. And, 3 years later, whatever it is, fast forward, we've done X amount of projects and showcase a few of them on social. But it's like, all right, now if you had the ideal situation, like what would the products be? Would it be, 2 new constructions, and what would they have to be at a price point for you to only have to do 2? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I've always had that in my head because Doug Whitler and his wife did it, and I've walked their products, and they do stuff for Patrick Ahern, and it's like, all right, that would be cool. I'd love to do that. Small staff, stay boutique, but the products that were coming in over the 3 years that we were in business wasn't, the calculations wouldn't add up to be able to do that. Some were spec, some were custom, some were renovation. So it was like, let's just take the next 3 years and take all that data. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we said. That's what we did.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, we'll take all the data, figure out which ones are the most profitable, figure out which ones we love to do. And then as you grow the team, check in with them and see what they love to do. Make sure it's aligned. Now we've gotten the opportunity to do products where, like I said, out of the next 3 projects that we have in Metro West, 2 of them don't even have designs. We've signed contracts with them for a percentage and plus management. So it's like, all right, if we can do that, and those are going to take 2+ years to build, so we don't have to look at anything. Like right now, like today, this morning, I emailed a bunch of people back and said, hey, I did a little bit of legwork over the last 2 weeks and found these people great other contractors to work with. Like we did the big one in Cohasset. We probably got 3 or 4 referrals in Cohasset. And I'm like, it's a great area. I love it. I'm not going to put the staff and the artisans, I'm not going to develop a whole new network down there for those projects and have the current clients pay for us to grow. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
In that market. I don't want to do that. It's just not something I want to do. 2 years ago, I probably would have done that, and it's now that we have these products and they're cool. It's just, all right, how do I do this where instead of it being, hey, let's turn it over, let's do pre-con, let's turn it over. I've done those. Have a whole binder, have it all bid out, turn it over to a PM, and then pop in like Craddock, pop into a meeting here and there. Dude, that means I'm running a business. In the reality, I don't want to do that. It's part of the necessary evil of having our own business, but I'd rather have a bookkeeper that handles all the money end of it, have attorneys that handle the other end of that, have an accountant that kind of does the books at the end of the year, make sure we're not getting murdered on taxes each quarter. But if I could every day run projects, that's why I'm in this business.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about, are you chasing money? Are you chasing the project? What are you chasing? I just want to create. I don't want to get past it. It's like having someone that's a painter do all this painting and then go, hey, I'm going to get all this work in. I'm just going to supply you guys with paint.
Right.
and then you guys just paint for me so I can sleep in and then chase on the next paint project. No, they want to be an artist still. So how do I continue to be an artist? And I think that's the kind of root of it that I don't know if it got misplaced or it got a little foggy over 3 years to figure out how you put this in place. And again, this may have all changed if there were different people that were in the company that were doing more. I probably would have pulled back more. I don't know. Or I would have, honestly, I probably would have taken on a bigger project that appealed to me. And I think that's where I'm at. So it's like, how do we do this where like I run the job and I have assistants like we talked about? Like there's almost every architect I deal with the principal.
Mhm.
and I know it gets done by other associates. So this will be a little bit, take the covers back and be like, hey, no, you're gonna meet with me, do it all, but then this team's gonna put it together. But anything that's like design wise, everyone's gonna have their say. Like the PM or the super can go through and go, hey, what about this? Love that collaboration. But the push production, to think out those little things that are missing, to sniff out things that are needs to be redrawn.
Mhm.
I want to do all that with my team and not have to go back and do paperwork. Everyone's kind of no one has a defined role. Nick, I know that's what you're gonna ask me. So how do you write this up? You sent me a write up that I was like, blah blah blah.
You were like, "Yeah, that's not gonna work." I was like,
It's great, but it gives you a false sense of security that like it's almost like that contract with a client. I know you need it. That way you have your lawyers have something to use
Mhm.
as an anchor. But if I have to like that project I walked away from with the asbestos, that would have been, hey, remember page 26 of the contract? This is where you pay this part, or this is the schedule, or this is the delay, or this is I don't want to do that kind of business.
Yeah.
Like Tyler says, I want them to know what we can create, know that we bring value. Like the fact that we do spec houses and then we do, $800 a square foot projects. We know the spectrum. I know what subs I can slide into certain projects to find a balance. And we have all that data. So for a client to come to me and go, hey, I think there's more value somewhere else with a different framer, it's like, whoa, there might be. The the other side that we're ignoring right now because things go smooth is that this crew might just jump and disappear because they're cheaper and they can make more money somewhere else. And at the moment that we're getting them cheap, it's because they didn't bid anything out. You get me? Like they could have 5 bids drop while they're halfway through framing our house and go, you know what? Peace. Then we're going to spend what we spent on them, then have a delay, and then have to hire somebody else. And it's like that burden's on me to make sure it all looks smooth. It's like when we were all talking before, it's like Tommy Silva. How many times did you watch this old house as a carpenter and go, you tell me that motherfucker just took a measurement, didn't write it down, walked down, cut 17 different pieces of wood, then walked back up into the room and everything fit perfectly? It's because you paid for the 100 years of knowledge that Tommy has, that he was able to do that without thinking.
I don't
Where
think
most
Tommy
of us
would
have to,
appreciate the
yeah,
100-year comment.
we have to write it down, go down and cut it, and then test fit it, and then walk back and forth 10 times. I know it's the magic of TV, but you're paying for that experience. So it's like the team that we've created, that's what you're paying for. And if we have to manipulate that, you're paying for that as well. That we'll go seek out somebody else that's going to be just as hungry, just as eager to create and make that part of the detail, whatever that is. It's just sometimes they fake us out, Tyler.
So you didn't going into this, you kind of had a vision for what you wanted your company to be and where you wanted to be. But then you kind of went through the motions and did some jobs and realized what would work and what wouldn't work and where you kind of want to shape and mold your company.
Well, I don't know if we had like I think what we wanted to do is build what we were building together, for ourselves. So keep doing custom homes, but then when you decide to pull the plug on something and you don't have anything lined up, you're at the mercy of whatever comes first.
Yeah.
To keep your livelihood, keep your salary, keep your car, house, all that stuff in check. So I don't know. I had just had a general plan. Like this would be cool to do this, but then life throws curves at you.
Yeah, I guess I asked because from the outside looking in, it was you hit the ground running. And then basically you could tell you were taking anything and everything that came across your plate, which is pretty much standard when you first start your business. I think that you had a leg up just based on relationships and experience going into it. You weren't replacing front doors and windows and doing odd jobs going into it. So you definitely hit the ground running, but it seemed as though you went from, 100 miles an hour to 120 miles an hour, and now you're pumping the brakes to try and get into a spot that you fit better for you, for Benny, for everyone else who's in your small company right now. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I think you can get caught up into just growing and It's easy. You can easily do that. Next project comes along, and you're like, yeah, let me do this. But it's just it's thinking about like understanding what certain like I'm right now in my head I'm thinking of like all the different people that are in a company and what their limits are from what I know beyond what they're going to grow into, but knowing what it is. It's like we're doing a bunch of stuff in the city that are like modern, that are multifamily, that are whatever. It's like, does our sign make sense in front of that project?
Yeah.
You know, the quality is going to
Not
be into it.
really.
Exactly. You know, like from that 1,000 foot view. Like if I get stuck in that niche, like we talked about with the 2-car garages and all that, is that a niche that's going to be what we want to hang our hat on, you know, in the next 10 years? Like there's guys out there that do, Nick wants to go more modern. And I love that. Like that works for NS builders. That's Nick shaping that. But in the reality of it is, it's like, to be honest, we took products on where we did, hey, we locked in our management, we locked in our fee. And then these products evolved and we didn't renegotiate those because we thought being a man of our word would be the right move. The reality is, no, like anyone else, they then have to take on a third project to
Mhm.
compensate for those shortcomings of project A and B. So
Right.
project C gets in the mix. So, you know, it's really tough because some of those were a launch pad, but how do you correct that at some point? How do you then close out C, but make sure D and F, you know, are the right ones that where you're not creating this perpetual cycle where my numbers are wrong or I did this or I added another employee and how do you pay for this? We have a fifth truck. You have to keep your eye on the ball and then it's I wish it went smoother to be honest with you. I wish it went like it did on social media.
What was the driving factor for you? Was there an aha moment? Or was it just a culmination of things that made you realize that you don't want to grow much more than you have?
We never wanted to. I mean, Benny and I first set out after year one, and the two of us worked because we had been sued by a past employer for a crazy, ridiculous amount of money, and we were fighting that off. So the first year we didn't hire anyone when we wanted to because we didn't want to bring anyone else in the fold of that lawsuit because we didn't know what was going to happen. Because when you get stacks of paper the size of the code book, you're like, how is this not real? Like it's like it's freaky, and then you're spending money to pay that off. So the first year was really tough. I mean, it put me in the hospital with AFib just because I was like, the burden's on you. Like, you know, the 100% where you're switching gears from a company that you poured your life and soul into for 5 years to turn around and get slapped in the face and then try and build a company and have that kind of faulted every which way where there was inspectors that knew our old boss that made me wait like 2 months for a rough inspection on one of the first houses we built. And I was like, yo, I get it. You're going to haze me. Like, just punch me in the face now so I can get over with because I got
Yeah.
people that need to move in. I got families that need to eat. Like, what the heck? And it made it really tough. And the health thing for me being, you know, kind of 1,000 miles an hour made me really at the time where I couldn't have the time to devote to myself when it had to be my business. It made it really hard to understand that, hey, my body should be the priority, but the company is. And it was tough. So, um, but Ben and I that first year were like, I think if we were to do this right, we would be at 5 total, including a bookkeeper and us. So we were only looking to hire 2 people to kind of, because I mean, we had only had a team of 4 or 5 in the beginning, you know, with our last company, and that worked. So we're like, we don't need to reinvent any. Like, I think that was the biggest frustrating part was we're not reinventing anything. We're doing exactly what we're doing now, just with a different name on the check.
Yeah, and because your last company basically was your boss was the money. He wasn't running the actual business end of things. So you guys were kind of structuring things the way that they work best for your setup, right?
Say that again. Sorry.
Like your last boss was basically the money guy. He wasn't the operations guy. So you guys were able to kind of tailor the operations as you saw fit on your end And that like that end of it wasn't necessarily dictated by your boss, right?
We did a lot of it our own way. I mean, they definitely slid in there and tried to create a ruckus and
Yeah,
have a voice in the situation, which made a lot. Like I joke and say I could manage 2 more products, not having the drama that was involved there, which is a crazy amount of workload.
yeah. Um, I forgot about all that stuff early on. It's been 3 years. It seems like a lot longer ago than that, to be honest. I
I
know
was just
everything
thinking the same thing.
flies, but like thinking of when that was happening, that seems so long ago.
I remember there would be like a year where I was like, I'm shaking trees.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, I don't know what's ever gonna pan out of this. If someone like I wasn't even talking to like existing clients or anything. It was just like what opportunities maybe through social were coming my way that could develop into something that's real. And then is that fear is like as soon as you leave, is anyone gonna answer the phone? Like subs, suppliers, any of that. And some of it was true. And then, it was compounded by other things where you can't work for so and so. And it was like, what? But no, I mean, I'm happy with the journey. If I look back like I always do and try and, regroup and reevaluate and, there's some deals I probably wouldn't taken again because I didn't trust myself or trust the market. I need to have guaranteed funds. So that way I could make sure we hit payroll because that's obviously one of the biggest things. You don't want anyone worried about making payroll, but it's, you know, if these products came on sooner, the ones we have now, I would have done this sooner. But it also means that over the last 6 months to a year, saying no to those jobs that make you question what's going on and if it's the right relationship you're getting into, saying no to those gave me the opportunity to be here in year 4 instead of year 6 having this
Yeah.
conversation. So I
You
mean, people have asked on. I think we have. I was going to forward it to you guys. Question to be asked today. I took it from SurveyMonkey. Hold on.
it's just you look at the way that you're structured now, and coming from the company that you were coming from and having such a hand in the daily processes and how you were going to build that company, although there were a lot of headaches with that, you you did at least have the ability to collect a salary and also refine a lot of processes and build in the same area, the same type of the homes. Obviously more experience now, and you really have your hand 100% in it, and it's not necessarily tied to your boss's money. um but it did give you that opportunity to kind of get your feet wet and start the process of your own company without being on your dime at that point, because what you and Benny were doing, although somebody else was like financing that part of your business, it wasn't necessarily coming out of your pocket. um a lot of what you guys are doing and what you learned and what you've taken has kind of it's come with you at this point.
Mhm.
And even the area that you're working in and everything else, like, people know who you are, whether that's a different name on the sign or not. Like, they know you.
Correct. Yeah, they know the brand that we created. That's why I think, having LinkedIn and that stuff, even though I don't post on it at all, I always go on and have to like the next 6 things that Nick had put on. So my content on LinkedIn is. It's like Nick and Brad from AFT and maybe occasionally Mike from ECS. And I'm like, all right, I'm done with LinkedIn already. Like, I see these guys all the time. Like, what am I doing? And then I'm like, I can't create content. This is exactly what goes through my head. I can't create content right now that rivals those 3. So do I really need to post right
Yeah,
now
but why?
on
Like,
LinkedIn?
why is it a rival?
I mean, it just like I
Don't you?
want.
I look at it completely differently. I look at it as this is
You're the one creating. You have a guy creating content for you. Of course, you should look
fa-
at it differently.
fair enough. But even if Doug, like, even if I didn't have Doug, I would still approach it. And I did before I
Yeah.
had Doug. I approached it with the understanding of this is the way I can shape what I want my company to be, and what it's about. And it's like, and I've seen firsthand of, all right, if I change a couple things, I wonder if it will change the clientele that reaches out to me. And I've made these changes, and then it's
And
boom, like I have different clientele reaching out, because I'm putting a different message out there or altering the message. I feel like that's, if for you, and this is just my opinion, it's like for you, it's the same thing where if you want to fine tune the clients that you really want to be working with, then that needs to be thorough through the social media side of it.
Yeah, but at the same point, dude,
Mm.
I get that. I would honestly rather fade away on social media and just let the word of mouth kind of grow.
Yeah. I
That's like I would be totally cool with that because I've had I do think you get the leads on Instagram and social media, but at the same point, then I would take 2 direct referrals
mhm.
and then someone that looked us up through social media, then someone cold finding me. Is that right? Instead of cold
Yeah.
calling, cold finding me on social media. I get a lot of those in email. Hey, love your stuff on social media. Is this something you're interested in? If I want to be super like I those aren't my client either. Like the fact that they found me on social and they think that we're the right fit, like having a
Yeah, but I
direct
don't
referral
think
from 2 clients, I'll take that because dude, they really don't know what they want.
that's fair, but and I don't think a lot of our clients aren't coming directly through social. There certainly has been some, but more of it is that second, backhand where it's, there's a referral or there's some sort of introduction, and then they're finding us on social and then getting to learn a little bit more about us.
So,
Where
so social for you, you're casting a net, correct?
yeah, in some sense, yes. And it's, more about creating awareness about who we are and what we're doing. So that awareness grows, and it's, if 100 people know about us, we're looking to just hopefully get one to the bottom of the funnel, if you want to call it.
No, true. I don't know. I think there
I'm
is
not
the
saying it.
luxury.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's required. Like obviously word of mouth and referrals are huge, but part of me is like, that's like coasting down a hill where it's like I don't have my foot on the gas because I'm just letting it, I'm just letting the referrals come in.
But I'm saying at some point, shouldn't the brand actually have taken hold in the market where you don't
Totally.
have to
And
keep
and again, I think
pushing?
we're looking like obviously looking at different, we're trying to grow differently. So like where I want to continue to cast a broad net and have the NS Builders name be well known more than just Boston, and just continue to grow that as just a massive brand. That's always been what I wanted, is to have this brand be far larger than I can ever be. So that's from the social side, social
See,
side.
I
And
think that's where we differ. I would take 3 extremely happy clients for the year. I know we're talking about 2 different things, and my brand be just contained within that small area code.
yeah, and that's what I mean. I don't think that, again, it's not wrong. Obviously, I want all of our, like, if we have 3 clients for a year, I want those clients to be super happy too. But I want to continue to grow the awareness of who we are, to open up possible opportunities for bigger growth. But then it's also, you obviously have a personal brand that, I think that's, we create awareness behind, our personal brand, this podcast. We become quote unquote thought leaders in the industry. And
What'd you just call it?
a thought leader,
Where'd that come from?
I feel like that's a
I've
term that
never
we've
even heard
tossed.
that.
Yeah,
Tyler,
we're
break the
industry thought
ties.
leaders.
I don't know if I've heard it, but that doesn't sound. It doesn't sound
I just
like
make that word up.
Doesn't
like
sound
when you.
terrible.
I mean, you definitely. Neither one is made up, but it doesn't sound like when somebody has like a made up name, and you're like, that's definitely a made up name.
One whose views on a subject are taken to be authoritative and influential. So I
That's
would
a new one.
consider
So you
us.
got rid of influencer and put that's cool.
I would consider us thought leaders in the industry because of our presence in the industry.
And you know what? I'll let you run with that because then you can blanket the social media and I'll just sit back and take some credit somewhere along the line, or try and come up
don't
with
say
something
like
savvy to say at a meeting or
I,
at a
I'm
talk.
not, add that to your LinkedIn construction thought leader.
I
I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other. I like talking about it, and I think
mean,
it's
I think I like tracking what we do,
yeah.
and like
Well,
I
you've
said,
always said that the Polaroid.
yeah, I love that part of it. And I think that's what I'd like to do with social. And I remember my old boss actually in the beginning of social media is like, dude, no one reads what you write underneath the photos. And I was like, that's all I care about is what I write underneath the photos. That's like my main
It's
thing.
your
And
diary.
Yeah.
what's that?
It's a diary.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's like it's dumping. When I go dry on social, it's because I'm either trying to, pull content that's older and I have to think about what was happening at that moment. I just
Mhm.
like spitting out what my thought is right then and there.
Mm.
It's harder because I'm not perfect.
I think
And
that's
I'm not saying I am, but it's like it's really hard to push a narrative when I know I have corrections that need to be made. And for me to put, like Benny says it all the time, it's like, how do you put time into social media when I should be putting time into correction?
Mhm.
And that's where I want to be, whether it's getting back to people in, a 24-hour cycle, whatever it is. Well, that takes precedence. So as you go through this and take over so many things, it's like right now I'm trying to take an hour a day and just buzz through QuickBooks to make sure it's up to date. And it's like, all right, I add that hour up. I add up this getting back to everybody, this texting everybody, this making sure this is right. Guess what? The last thing that's left is social media. And I find myself, instead of going to work and writing a post or finding that photo that I'm cool with, or I just rather scroll through it and pull inspiration from it.
Yeah.
I may not be posting, but I'm definitely, at 10 o'clock going through
I'm
it.
creeping.
Dude,
I may not. We're gonna get you a shirt made. I may not be posting, but I'm still creeping.
still creep, dude. I love it. Hashtag it. No,
Creeping AF.
because I mean, that's really where that internal drive comes from. It's
Yeah.
like going to JLC or going to IBS or just going to hang out with Jason or Brad. That's how you refill the tank, and that's what's really missing is what we need. I went out away this weekend for a long weekend, but dude, I can't tell you Thursday I took off. I don't think I was mentally unplugged from work till 2 o'clock Friday, because that's when I really mentally unplug anyways.
Mhm.
Because 2 o'clock Friday, it's like it's the point of no return for the weekend.
Yeah.
And then 1 o'clock on Sunday is when it plugs back in.
See, that's the trouble. And what I was going to actually say before you said it is that the hardest part for me, even with my small setup, it's not even unplugging. If I'm going to go away, I'll try and get everything in order so that I can comfortably go away and not have to worry about anything. And that's working crazy hours beforehand and kind of managing what's going on. But it's at the end of when I'm away, it starts turning on way sooner than it should, where it's like you wake up on Sunday, and even if you have nothing to do on Sunday, it's like, all right, I just need to get home so I can start getting things in order with what I have to. Like, there's no way that I can shut it off until Sunday night or Monday morning and be like, oh, I'll wake up on Monday morning and figure out what's going on. It's always jumping back into it too soon.
100%. And I was with all my buddies, and I was like, man, I remember one of them asked me, he was like, why are you so angry? And I was like on the golf cart. And I'm like, I'm fucking thrilled right now. Like, but how I was being perceived was like, my mind was definitely somewhere else. And I was lying to myself thinking, I remember I called my wife at the end of the day on Friday, and I was like, she's like, how's it going? I'm like, I don't know if I really unplugging. Like, I feel like I should have just stayed at work and got more done and did this next year. Like, and she's
Next
like,
year's
just,
going to be any different.
I know, but dude, it's fucked. It's a real struggle. And I keep telling myself, like, you're a month out from really making good strides. And then I look back and I'm like, dude, you've been saying that for 8 months.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. My dad did that for 20, 30 years, that, it's going to be next year. It's going to be next year. And it's going to be next week. It's going to be tomorrow. It'll be the next job. And it never seems to change unless you change. Because all the same crap's going to be happening. Even if you sort out whatever problems are on your plate right now, you're going to have new struggles next year. It's just going to be something else that you have to deal with. I it's I'm always looking for inspiration from people as to, I guess you justify what you're doing by what other people are doing, and you see everyone else grinding and hustling, and it's like, well, it's okay if I do that. And then recently, I've kind of gone the opposite way and looked towards people who are successful, have a decent, solid family life, and are able to kind of have a foot in both worlds. And even my electrician, he's, I think, maybe 52 or so, like very fit, in shape, and texted me last week that he's in the hospital. He has like a triple bypass surgery scheduled. He went in with chest pain. They're like, yeah, you need emergency surgery.
Holy shit.
And he's got
Healthy?
young kids.
How healthy is he?
Healthy. Like,
I'm saying
I
that
don't know.
in a way that I'm like,
I
is he
don't
like
know what
me?
his eating habits are, but he's like skinny, in shape, looks as if he works out. Doesn't smoke. Maybe drink socially. I don't even know. Um, but like a very hardworking guy, and you can just tell that he's like working his butt off and stress and everything else. And I'm sure it has genes and family and history, medical history has something to do with that. But I've been keeping in touch with him, just checking in if he needs help, this and that. And one of the things I asked him was like, have you given thought to kind of prioritizing your life? And he's like, yeah, this is a huge eye opener for me, just because I'm realizing that there's more important things than keeping my customers and all of my contractors happy, which a lot of times it does take something like that, or Rachel's dad getting sick, where I'm like, holy crap, he's 68, just turned 68. And I'm like, I'm 35. That's 30 years down the road. Like, what if? And I start thinking about things like that and kind of want to shape my life and what I'm doing so that hopefully at some point I can take some time off, but I'm also not just pushing all of that to the end of my life. And then God forbid something happens. How many people work their ass off for this retirement that they never see? So I want to try and do my best while the girls are young, and while I still have my body and my mind and all that stuff, to enjoy some of life and not just kind of be a shepherd to my customers.
You know what's crazy though is I totally agree with all that, but at the same token, when it's going good, it's smooth. It's not every day is super stressful, but when
No.
you get everything moving, there's such a high when everything's like you drive by and there's 20, 30 trucks and everything's cruising. There is a high. You can see it, and that's what paints that picture. I want to say to myself, and I'm cognizant that I'm not lying to myself and go, hey, these next group of products are the ones that you do right. It's like I'm not doing that. I'm cognizant that it's like I know where, like, we have great projects, but at the same time, you need one client not to pay you, and it's like that can eat up so much of my brain. Like, Nick, to be honest with you, I have one client right now that I'm having an issue with. And it's like if I took that and solved that, I'd be posting like crazy because I wouldn't. Like, literally, my mind goes to that, leans that. It's like a magnet.
Yeah, I
Takes
mean,
all my free time.
yeah, I've been there. I feel like we've talked about that offline.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But it's just to be honest on this podcast, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's if I would.
It's and that's, I know we've talked about it before. It's like it's so frustrating that those type of clients, that like Tyler, the lady that with the roof, it's like when the relationship is toxic or negative, the amount of effort we put towards trying to fix it or get it into a more positive mindset is is literally being you're sucking your attention away from everything that's good. And I
Well,
think
the,
that
the
goes
hardest
back
part.
to that book, that quote I talk about in the book a lot, is like not focusing on the problems and focusing on opportunity. And my takeaway from that was like, yes, the negative, the bad clients, the difficult clients, like absolutely need to be resolved, and you need to, work to do that and get your mind right. But it's like when you start realizing that, what, this is, I'm going to look back in 6 months, a year from now, and it's going to suck, and maybe I'm going to lose money, or maybe I'm going to lose sleep, but I have this awesome project to the left of me right here, and I need to focus on that, because if I don't, all I'm going to do is I'm never going to set myself up for success for that next job, because I'm you know so tied up in trying to resolve this problem that is only going to be resolved with time.
Well, it's like your parents. You ever get yelled at by your parents?
Never.
Like get screamed at, and then they get a phone call,
All right, maybe once or
and
twice.
they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like they completely change, like
Mm.
from flipping out to that. It's like, how do you not let one thing influence the other thing? That is the hardest thing. Like
Yeah.
when I worked for other companies, like when I got my reviews, one of the things that I always pull from my reviews is that I was always steady. I was always that constant that a client could rely on, where they wouldn't know if I was having a bad day. They wouldn't know if their product, they would never see the effect of life on me. It was like, hey, they would come to the table, emotional, whatever it is during the project, but I would be that constant. And that's what you have to be in, especially being the owner of the company, you have to be that constant. And it's like when you're dealing with certain burdens, it's really, you guys know, like if we go to like IBS and you have to be on for how many hours? Dude, how much more draining is that than actually a work day? Right?
Yeah.
Like being on and being the personality where you're cruising, you have high energy, because that might be the one moment that energizes that person.
Right.
That's why they showed up. And that's what it's like when you're dealing with certain situations where you're like, oh, I gotta, whether even it's a project where, it's not going smooth and there's certain people you have to then double down on. That could, or like waiting for materials and having to update people where I had a delivery was supposed to come. They're like, yeah, it comes. It's like a week ago. It's like, yeah, it comes on Friday to the warehouse. All right, we'll get it delivered to the job site on Monday. I'm like, Monday, you're gonna get, oh no, it's raining, so we're gonna deliver it on Tuesday. I call Tuesday, hey, where's it at? I got the carpenters coming. Oh, we lost it. Hold on a second. You're telling me it went from being on the property Friday, can't send it Monday because of weather, to Tuesday not knowing where the product is. And I go and I try and be this transparent person. So I tell the client what's happening, blah, blah. And then you're telling me I'm going to go back to the client and tell them it's vanished.
That's the worst.
How the fuck do I do that?
That's the worst. When you're trying to be honest with them and like give them a heads up, and somebody's giving you the runaround, and you're like play for play passing this off, and then it gets to the point where you're like, honestly, I just look stupid for passing this information along.
Yeah.
But you're trying to like, again, like pass the good news to them, or hey, I heard from them, they said we're expecting it this, and then like, oh, the truck got a flat tire and they had it, and I'm like, I can't even tell them this.
Right.
It just looks like I'm lying.
Right.
And I'm lucky that there's products where we've had clients where they're like, you can almost see them getting a sense like they're like, really? And then like they ordered the carpet themselves for the basement. Okay. And they're like, yeah, so the carpet's coming in next week. They put all the tack strips down. And I'm like, why isn't the dog going downstairs? Because the tack strips are still there. They dropped the pad, but they never got the carpet. I'm like, cool, whatever, it happens. Like I'm that like kind of cool casual guy, knowing that she's freaking out. And then she's like, oh, hey, the carpet's coming tomorrow. I'm like, sweet. And then like next week, they're like, it's coming next week. I'm like, whatever, doesn't matter to me. And then the husband goes, you're never gonna believe what happened to the carpet. I'm like, what? And he's like, they started installing the wrong color carpet, and it's so close, but it's wrong. It came direct that we're just gonna live with it. I'm like, I said to him, I leaned on like the kitchen counter, and I was like, imagine if that was me and I was in charge of the carpet right now. You guys would jump down my throat, and all rights reserved, like you're allowed to.
Yeah.
But it's like, you now know
Right.
one piece of that puzzle, times that by 400, and that's what I deal with on one project on a day.
Yeah.
You have no control. And they're like, we get it now. And you almost wish clients would have some sort of reality check like that. So that way They're like, we
Listen, I just
understand.
want you to start this job.
Yeah, exactly. You
Just get the concrete guy here.
like you order one thing on this whole
Yeah.
project. I'll order everything else and see how it goes. And but at the same point, it's like, but there's times that everything, it can be like the carpet, but you get it all timed out, right? Like we had ordered, like the client had changed to all cedar on, like we haven't showed anything on Patina Farmhouse because everything's changed between the hardy, instead of being asphalt, they went with all cedar. We ordered cedar 2.5 months ago. I can tell you when it left Canada and went through customs because I'm like, where is this? Because I don't have a roof. I can't finish HVAC, all this stuff. And you're trying to, it's coming in maybe in the next 2 weeks. I'm like, I can't pass that on either.
Where is it? I'll go get it.
No, but then the client starts calling around going, hey, can I get this cedar? And it's like, I was smart enough to say, not smart enough, but I was coy enough to have one of my supers call every single supplier within the Northeast. So that way, if someone did call, they'd get the exact same answer we did.
Yeah.
I go exhaust every single option we have, find out where it is. And at one point, they're like, yeah, we found it. And I'm like, let me guess, it's R&R's primed. And they're like, yeah. I go, it doesn't go on the roof. Like I get it. But you want to what you guys were saying before is like, even if you're talking about overhead and that stuff, you have to have the right answers. You have to know what they're going to say next. And for a client that, they're going to want to at least dabble in it and call a couple of places. I get it. Call. You're going to get the same thing I'm going to tell you. And the only thing that's going to be in stock. And that only adds credibility to the situation that's at hand. Not, hey, it doesn't add doubt to the situation. You get me? That's where it can go. It's a 50-50, shot. It's just how do you do it the right way? And then and the bigger thing is, I find a lot of PMs, employees, everything else, if you can get one excuse on a project, that stops the whole project. Like, oh, well, they didn't pick plumbing valves. So that means we can't get roofing. We can't chase down roofing. Like that means we can't chase down the hardy siding. Like, no, you need to get it. So if it does show up magically, you're now not at fault for delaying the project for the other 4 things or 10 things that's there. You get me? So that's where my head's at. And I've gotten to a point where I think one of the struggles we have in general, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, is trying to find our limit. And knowing it, seeing it, and then going, hey, I mean, for sports, it was like, there is no limit. I'll go as hard as I have to go until I puke or red line or whatever. And that's how I play life. You know what I mean? It's like, that's all I knew. Like, I remember when I was in high school and I got pulled over, and I remember sitting there going, is this like a 2-minute penalty? Like, how is this? Like, all I've ever known is a penalty box. Like you get in trouble, you go to a penalty box. I got pulled over for like speeding, whatever it was. And I was like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're like, well, we're going to give you a warning. And I was like, but I could have gotten a ticket. He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh man, it's a different game. Like, that's how naive I was to life. And it's the same thing. It's just like, all right, well, if I work out hard enough, I can do anything, because it's all heart and will at that point. And so if you take that into business, it can get you in trouble because heart and will get you there. But having the wherewithal to track it, to put it all in writing, to have the backup, to have all those things. So when you do your best effort, have your best effort, it isn't at a cost. You get me? And it's just being able to be cognizant of like, all right, can I do 3 renovations? That's really what I've been doing for the last 3 years of going, hey, is it a spec? Is it 2 customs? Is it a client that can't make decisions?
But you have to be able to draw a line in the sand where it can't be, the athletic pushing yourself every single day of your life. You're not an Olympic athlete.
You seen this?
You have right.
Yes.
But you can't if it's, hey, we're closing out a job in 3 months, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, then you can go 110 miles an hour until you hit that deadline or until you kind of accomplish the task at hand. But at some point in our life, when we have kids and we have a family and there's other people who are depending on us, and it's not just us chasing this goal by ourselves, we have to be able to reel that back some and to dial that in. And it can't be 110% every single day. every hour of every day, because it's not fair to everyone else around us to pick up the slack. It's not fair for our wives to have the kids the entire time while we're working 24/7, for people who are working for us to cover us because we're doing something else. For it's just, at some point you can do that for a limited amount of time, or to kind of accomplish one goal. But you get to a point in your life where you cannot just push yourself beyond that limit and say, oh, well, that's my new limit now.
Yeah.
At some point we're too old for that shit.
Well, I think you're right. The kids part of it. Not to say that I definitely work the way I am now with just me and my wife and I. I'll just keep working. I mean, that's like when she's also been good about that. Like even when we were younger, I'd be throwing the bags on, and she'd be like, "We're taking to be home." I'd be like 8 o'clock, and then like midnight would roll around. She wasn't like, "Oh, you're out at the bar." It's like I'd come home exhausted, passed out on the couch, covered in sawdust. But she never gave me shit.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna blame her for not setting the bar at that point right then and
Yep.
there and going, "Yo, sit me down." But she did sit me down, and she's the one who told me to start vintage. Be honest,
It's true though. You can do that, and then when you prove yourself that you have the strength to do that and to accomplish your goals, at that point you need to have the experience and the wisdom to kind of pull back some and realize, hey, I know what my limits are. I know that I can reach those limits, but it's not worth it to push to that limit every single day of your life. You can do that. You can do that shit in your 20s. You can do that shit in your early 30s. And then it gets to a point where it's like, it's not healthy to do that for anyone.
But okay, hear me out. It took me, I would say, late 20s, early 30s to even realize there's a serving size on most bags. So, like, if I don't know any better, Tyler, like, what? This is all I know.
But it's easy to say that this is all that I know, but there's factors and there's indicators, or you can ask for the opinion of others, to kind of get input as to what is normal and what um, would be helpful for other people. Because while you see it as, hey, I have the ability to do this, this is all I've known for the past 40 years, this is the way that I operate, that I tick, that's a very self-centered approach. That's what makes you feel good. That's what makes you feel accomplished. I'm the same way, right? If I put in a 12-hour day, I feel better going home than if I put in a 10-hour day, because I'm like, hey, I just knocked off all the stuff that I had to do. I kind of gained some steam, but I'm not taking into account my daughters who I didn't lay in bed with when they went to sleep, my wife who had to make dinner and leave it on the table and clean up without me helping clean up, or sit down and eat without me there, the customers that I didn't email back because I said I'd get home at a normal time, eat dinner, and then answer some emails. So while I feel good about it, I'm not looking at the big picture, right? We're not single anymore. If I was single, I'd probably have a dog and I'd work 100 hours a day and there'd be nothing else to worry about, right? I'd have a ton of money, a ton of free time. I'd work and there'd be, but like at this point in my life, I have more responsibility to people other than myself, that, it's not fair to go 12 hours, 14 hours a day. And there's times I have to do that. Like we're going away in 3 weeks and I have to wrap up 2 jobs. Like I know that I'm going to have to work long hours for these next 3 weeks. And in my head, I'm like, this is the end of summer for our daughters. It's going to be another summer. My daughter's going to be 8 soon. And I'm like, what? Maybe I have 3, 4 more summers till she's like an absolute terror and doesn't want anything to do with me. And I'm thinking I'm going to spend the next 3 weeks working my ass off and missing out on 3 weeks worth of one of the last summers that I potentially get with her. So I kind of have to weigh and factor all those things. Is it just about me being able to go away and having a free plate, or am I sacrificing things that are important to other people as well?
True, I think, but there's a selfish thing that we'll do. We'll we'll surround ourselves with the Gary V's and the Brad from AFTs, where it makes you feel like you're doing less. Like
For sure.
like Brad, cool with 4 hours of sleep. What are you? You're not like he's an alien. Like
But
there's
Brad said that? 4
something like that.
hours?
He doesn't
you're
operate in the
always going to
220.
justify what you're doing by comparing yourself to people who it's convenient to compare yourself to. You know, if you drink a lot, you're not going to compare yourself to your friend that doesn't drink at all. You're going to compare yourself to your friend that drinks, 5 nights a week. Be like, well, so and so drinks 5 nights a week. I only drink 4, so I'm fine, right? Like,
No, I know. Just how do you find that sounding board that someone is real? Like Tyler, this conversation I think is fresh, and it's in a good way, meaning not like Fresh Prince of Bel Air, but like it's a fresh like thing to hear where it's like, yeah, I get it, because I think it, but then it goes right. Like today, I'm like, I'm gonna try and eat right today. Like I usually don't eat lunch, so eating right is like having lunch. Having lunch,
salad,
had a salad.
chicken
Yeah,
Caesar.
you got it. Literally from Panera.
I had a chicken Caesar.
It's but like I'm gonna go for a run tonight. I'm like, I feel comfortable if I do a 5-mile run and do that. So it's like, and then I'm gonna tell myself tonight I'm gonna write a note to my boys so that way they get it on Thursday, Friday for camp. That's my goal. So it's like, but will I get torn away and have to answer 15 emails because I'm in the groove? You ever get in
Yeah.
the groove and then that's the fucking excuse for the next 3 hours? Like I'm just cruising through this.
Yeah, sometimes I'm not great at doing it. It's easier to have this conversation with you and think of things that can be done that are different, or done differently. But it's even a matter of me asking the kids, do you want to go for a bike ride tonight, like in the morning? So then I'm now taking into account what they want more so than what I want. So when it's 5:30 at night and I'm like, well, I can still work for another hour and get this, and this done. Instead, I'm like, no, you know what? I told them we'd go for a bike ride, and like that will become my priority to get done whatever I need to. And if I skip lunch at that point to try and get a little bit more work done because I know that I want to skip out a little bit earlier, that's what I have to do. But it's not, I mean, it's definitely an effort. You have to be deliberate and intentional with that stuff, and you have to ask your wife what would help her, your kids what they would want to do. Again, because it's just like the conversation we had a little bit ago, where if you ask your kids, what's more important for me to spend some time with you or for you to have a brand new house, usually more times than not, they're going to say that they want to spend time with you.
Cam would want
Maybe.
a brand new house that he can design.
Right, but
Like,
like,
I
was gonna
just,
say,
ask
Marley
him
would
again when
definitely
he's
want
30,
a house.
hey, were you happy that dad was able to spend time with you, or would you have wanted,
no,
like,
yeah, 100%. But I won't give him the option. If I give him A and B, I'm fucked.
yeah.
I'm just the guy working. in
But
the
I
family.
don't have the answers to it. I feel like I have had a lot happen, and I've always tried to, um, be able to do some things, with the kids and spend some time and try and be present. And even if I'm just aware of trying to be present, I think that that's half the battle. And maybe I can't do everything that I want to. And in my head, I tell myself, well, look at 2-3 generations ago where the dad would go to work and work one job and then go to another job and never see their kids. And I tell myself, well, I'm okay working 12 hours a day because that's what it used to be like. And I'm not doing that. But
or I'm setting a good
realistically,
example of
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
like
done
what
that.
hard work
Yeah.
is. But I think at the end of the day, you kind of have to sit down and gauge what's right for you and what's right for your family, and how everyone's needs are getting met as best as they can be. And if you and your wife are kind of in control of that, you can't leave that up to the kids.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to expectations. I think
Customers, life, family, for
everything.
sure.
Yeah. I think it's just, even like if I say to my kid, Hunt, I'm going to try and get home so we can work out tonight, together. It's like he's probably holding on to that, even though I'm holding on to 17 other things at work.
Right.
When the reality of it is it worth? Here's the thing: is it worth? Because coming up short at work. This is like delegating it to somebody else and then them not following through while you're enjoying the time with, your kids.
Yes.
That's what I kind of fall into, is that like then I have to pick up the pieces of that shit show at work, that if I had stayed the extra hour, communicated to everyone, my family, that hey, when I stay an extra hour, this is what I fall into.
Mm.
Is that instead of having to pick up the pieces with the client over the next 5 days, would that 1 hour, if it had been slid, like the other day before Cam went to camp, my son, my oldest, and him, we went swimming. He had to do a 600-yard swim. So we went and did that at noon on a Wednesday. But like what I had to set up for that to go that smooth. You get me? Like, was everyone in the right place? Did everyone know what was going on? So that way I could disappear for 2 hours, which sounds, everyone's like, oh, well, he's got everything together, blah, blah. It's like, should be able to run smooth. It's not that case. A lot of it's held together by just a constant drive by someone, because otherwise, when you let stuff go a little bit, and I feel like when I put a lot of faith in people, they let off the gas. They let off the gas, the momentum gets dropped, and it takes all of us to push the ball back up the hill to get the momentum back. When I can let it go a little bit and keep it going, keep pushing it, and you just know instinctively when you need to put more effort into certain places. When I wish I was more naive to it, and I could chalk it up to being young and an idiot. Like, oh, I just didn't know that. I didn't know that would happen. Like, it would be so much easier to do that instead of going, yeah, if that doesn't happen, or lately, it's like we have skilled carpenters everywhere. And as soon as I walk on, like there's a dormer, and I'm like, this is like Pictionary. The dormer needs to match the picture. Forget about scale. Just for instance, real simple terms, it doesn't match. So like I'm sitting there and I go, not even with my guy on the ground, I'm like, explain to me who made the change from the drawings to make it look like that. Just explain it to me. Well, I'm like, but why wouldn't you just use the print? It's not like I have a shitty set of drawings. I don't understand, and I don't say it like that. I'm like, just explain to me how we got to this point. It happened even on Friday. No, it wasn't on Friday. It was Wednesday. And I'm like, I'm looking at this shed dormer, and the way that Hourihan's got this detail is the rake comes down, and there's no little return for that captured the bottom of the soffit. You get me? So the rake's got to come down.
Yeah.
And when it hits, plumb, it's now part of the soffit.
Right.
It didn't start as like a rake further back, like a pigeon return. And I get there and it's on there because I love how clean that looks. The corner board comes up underneath it, freeze wraps around, chases up the wall. There's no intersection that happens. And I get there and it's there. And I'm like, yo, it's the one thing I'm looking forward to. What's up? And there's 4 other Patrick Hourihan houses on the street. And I'm like, you're going to see this like a sore thumb when you look at it. It's super obvious that it's on this house and not the others. And it just, there's a different return. And I'm like, how do we get to that point? Well, it's this. It's because I had to do this. And I'm like, who explained to you that was the predecessor to everything? You get me? Like, that was the thing you're holding on to. That's not the thing you hold on to.
Yeah.
This is what you have to do. If we have to compensate a ½ inch somewhere in the casing, you'll lose it in the casing, but seeing it on the profile of this dormer, it's awful. You've ruined it.
Right.
And I just find this job is, it revolves around conflict. I'm sorry. And how well you can navigate conflict and not put it on someone's personality. It's like, I'm not blaming the carpenter or compromising their thing, but at the same token, it's like, I'm not paying to have you guys rework this. I'm sorry. I'm not making the client pay for this to get reworked. This is 100% on you, and I need you to put 100% effort into correcting it and not be bitter and pissy and that someone caught you not cutting a corner, but having, and I hate to say it, creative freedom when it was already beautiful.
Right.
Like, you just had to make it beautiful and match it, and then whatever had to get tweaked could get tweaked inside. But I don't know. It's a tough You know, it's like the other day I'm driving home and no kids, and I'm driving, and I'm driving through like a hurricane to go pick up food. And I'm like, I just hit the job site to see if the tarp was on because one of my guys had to leave early for a doctor's appointment. And I'm driving and I pick up the food and I'm like, dude, you gotta go back. Like, I know you put eyes on the tarp, but I really didn't look to see how it was nailed off, if there were any holes, blah, blah. So I drive back. And the whole time I'm driving back, I'm like, why is it the more employees I have, I'm still here? You know? And I'm there and it's leaking. Like just little leaks, but it's pouring in where it dips underneath the rafters. And I'm like, so I searching for zip tape. Obviously, it's on the other side of the house that we did. So I had to climb up a ladder and get in there. And then I'm more like, how is my PM not reach out to me and be like, hey, saw the rain on the forecast? Like, what's like have you got every time you see like the news and there's like, oh, there's a fire. I'm like, what town? What is that? My house? Is it one of the houses I'm working on? Like, this is me. And I'm like, dude, now he's never even reached out to be like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, he was just comfortable that the carpenters put the tarp on the house. Like that, let's say that house is a $3 million house. You're comfortable putting $3 million of someone else's property in jeopardy. Hypothetically. It's how I put it in my head. And I'm like, I wasn't comfortable with that. So I'll drive back. It was like 6 pieces of zip and threw some blowers on where the drips had happened. So that way the subfloor, I just didn't know what was going to happen with the subfloor. I'm like, it was a half hour to do it. But I'm like, if you guys know that me working for somebody else, me working for 2 companies before that, I was that guy no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what my label was in that company. It just boggles my mind. And then people listen to this and go, well, you should have told them the requirements of being a PM, that if it's going to rain, you should be there and check the tarp ahead of time and set that prerequisite
this
as
new voice. This new voice tonight.
Yeah,
Is
who is this guy?
But it's like, that's what I'm going to hear. It's like, no, now I know where the limit is and I'm cool with it. And I understood it and I'll be there for that.
See, but that's just managing expectations on your own behalf. And if you have, I don't want to say you have to lower your expectations because that never sounds good, but if you expect everyone to perform at the level that you perform, you will constantly be disappointed.
I don't want the performance. I just want the thought.
Yeah,
but
if
hey,
you expect
Johnny,
people
swing
to
by.
think
You're
as much
closer.
as you think, then you're going to be disappointed.
Right.
If you just, you accept that that's not going to be the case, and sometimes it will be, but more often than not, it's not going to be, and then that's just going to be your responsibility, and you're going to have to handle that.
Okay, here's the spot.
maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised at some point, but at least you're not sitting there taping off a roof that's leaking in your head, fuming, thinking, I saw the rain in the forecast. This person doesn't think, how much is this house worth? Like, dude, I do the same thing. Like, I'd be up there just pissed. Like, how is this me and nobody else gives a shit?
The only saving grace was that I didn't order anything that was like needed to be warm. And B, my kids weren't home.
Yeah.
Because if I had missed that moment with my kids, I'd be really mad. But anyone listening to this that has a company or is employed that thinks like I do, isn't happy where they are and they're in the New England area, send me your resume.
John at vintagebuilders.org.
Info. And just send it to info. I don't want to clog up John.
Info at vintagebuilders.org.
.org. Okay. Not. I haven't bought that. I'm too cheap.
Too cheap.
Nick, you gonna roll soon, right?
Yeah, I got a couple minutes.
Well, this was good, Nick. This talking to me. This was fun. I enjoyed this.
Now we just have Tyler, and then now we have this Radio John that we got to talk to too.
Dude, Radio John's voice is amazing.
Yeah. You should have
It's the podcast listeners. It's the podcast
Welcome
listeners'
to.
voice.
You know what? Now you're gonna do the intro by yourself in Radio John voice.
It's just John. It's not Johnny.
Yeah. I don't know. I just get frustrated. This is my safe place, even though I know everyone listens to it, including the client whose house that tarp was on. Like,
Well, now they know that you went there.
he was one of the, I put on that story. And I honestly did the story not to say that I was there late. It was just the fact that I was doing it. And I was like, didn't you post a story early in the day of how cool it was. You walked up the stairs and opened the door and look at all this like framing and open. I was like, that was a cool video. This is reality.
Yeah,
I
right.
should have done one of those splits where it's like how it started, how it ended. Like,
Well, you sent me one recently. It's like what IG sees,
yeah.
what really happened, and I was like, oh.
Well, it's just like, tough.
Before we do sign off, this was the second week in a row that we had someone reschedule on us, so it's just the three of us, which I always appreciate, and I know a lot of people appreciate listening to as well. But despite being, we have quite a few weeks ahead of us with guests, but if you guys have additional people that you want to recommend, you got a place in that survey monkey, right, John?
Yeah, it's toward the back of it. There's been a few.
Well, let's flip the script a little bit here.
It's number 8 on the list.
Number 8 on the survey monkey. You can request someone,
suggest a guest,
or suggest. What about you guys? Who do you want to talk to, or what kind of people do you want to talk to?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be carpentry related, business related.
I would love to expand like just craft and craftsmanship in general. And for the one silly comment on iTunes, craft men and women is not gender specific. I would actually love to reach out to a couple girls in the industry, women in the industry, I should say, to get them on the podcast, which I think at least one of them has booked. Obviously had Anne of all trades, but would love to chat with more of them. And I know for me, I had mentioned a couple podcasts ago that I was hoping to get. The hell was that?
Sorry.
You're on TikTok?
No.
I want to get Jim Dow on the podcast, which I've talked to his assistant.
Is that Dow Built?
Dow Built, yeah.
Yeah, that was a suggestion on here.
Yeah, he's been on my list. He's the one that's building all across the country. You go to his website, you go to his hiring menu, and it's like every state he's hiring people in. It's crazy. John's looking at me like I'm crazy.
But no, that was me curling back in my head going, how is that even possible?
Yeah, so I want to dig into that. I want to dig. I totally want to dig into that. I don't know if I can either, but you throw it up there, see what sticks.
True.
What about you, Tyler?
Who would I want to talk to?
Yeah, or what kind of people?
I enjoy a few of our podcasts that are non-industry related. I think that it's a good conversation. A lot of times those people, if they're experienced enough, can take the lead. I like to kind of see the crossover from what people do to what we do. So I would like to get people on that's less carpentry, contracting related, more just craft in general.
I also wonder if we should expand it beyond like just different people.
Yeah, I tend to like talking to older people on the podcast too, because oftentimes, I don't know, in life, if I just found that I can pull a lot from people who have a ton of experience, and typically older means you have more life experience, you've been on the earth a little bit longer, but I do tend
Less of
to
a filter.
I mean, they've been around the block, and they understand and they've seen a lot of life, and I tend to enjoy, even like the Icon podcast comes to mind, like you said. But yeah, I would love to talk to some different people, not necessarily carpentry or construction related, and some older guests.
Someone suggested Larry Hahn's wife.
Is she alive? Like,
I feel like John just looked back at the response to see if it had any information on whether or not she was.
They asked for Will Holiday, Larry Hahn's wife, and Ruth Slayer.
I'm just thinking about Larry Hahn's wife. It's almost, I don't know, comical. Like,
I wonder if she's got a story. I wonder if she's got a story.
Maybe.
I mean, just the carpenter's wife. I mean, what's that like?
Yeah,
I think it'd be good.
She's alive, if he even had a wife.
I think I got Jimmy DeResta. I think he confirmed, didn't he?
I haven't checked, to be honest.
Nick Offerman has not replied to a single inquiry. I did reach out.
Neither has Mike Rowe.
Essential Craftsman on YouTube. He's
Oh
been
yeah,
asked
that guy's
a
sweet.
Yeah,
bunch
he's cool.
on here.
I've also reached out to the Perkins brothers.
Mm.
They're on YouTube. They have a cool. They do a pretty cool series. It's just day by day.
Did one of them get in an accident?
Oh, I don't know.
Like
Who
like
are
a
they?
carpentry accident?
I don't know.
I thought that's how they came across my radar.
Like recently?
Like a year ago.
Oh, I only found them probably 6 months ago. But every day, like they up the like day 3 of framing, day 4. Now we're on to this day 5. It's just like a vlog style. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, dude. I gotta go through that list and reach out to more people. It's on my list. I gotta get my slideshow done for the JLC.
Yeah, you're talking, right?
Yeah, like
How do
I'm
people
at the
sign
point
up?
now. I'm at the point now where I regret.
Yeah.
I
Oh, well.
anchored it. Where I'm like, I'm doing it, and then I'm like, oh,
So those that want to go see John Hourihan talk live,
I'm
at
gonna do the
JLC,
podcast
you're
voice the
doing
whole time.
Thursday.
It's Thursday. It's get it right here. It's Thursday at Thursday, August 12th, 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m.
We're
And
at.
I was supposed to be there for Saturday, but I gotta go pick up my son's at camp. So they're trying to find me a slot for Friday to do my other hour.
And where is that?
They don't tell me where. I think if you
Oh.
sign up for classes, it gives you access to.
There you go.
It's going to be construction management, project management of the courses.
Nice.
I got to sign the contract too. It's on my.
There you go.
So I got a list of things I got to do.
Beyond that, we're not going to be doing any live podcasts this year. There's talk about some possibly putting together a little event. I don't know. I feel like I'm speaking for 3 of us, but I don't think that's going to happen this year. But definitely excited to be back at JLC. And speaking of which, Duration Molding and Millwork is also excited. Because after a long absence from an in-person show, thanks to COVID, it's time once again for them to get back on the road and do what they like to do best, have those one-on-one conversations with pros. And be sure to check out the industry veteran Rick Arnold daily with a live demo of best siding practices featuring the Duration beveled siding, our new shake panels, our one-piece outside corners, and various molding profiles. We hope to see you there. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com and be sure to follow them on IG.
Every time that I hear his name, I just think of Tom Arnold. Every time.
All right, Radio John.
Keep the reviews coming. iTunes. Hit us up. If you have any criticism or any ideas, topics, concerns, hit us up at the Survey Monkey. You can find that in the IG profile.
Link in bio.
Link in bio. And then any reposts. We haven't had a lot lately. So tag Modern Craftsman Monday and tag the Modern Craftsman, and we'll repost it and share your take on stuff.
I hear that. I wish it was in your Radio John voice. Though.
I gotta be
Share your take on stuff.
You gotta do the intro that way.
No,
It's Modern Craftsman Monday. I don't even know what it was. It's
I don't
pretty
know
good.
either. I blacked out.
Can't do it again.
It's an emotional. It's an emotional
he's
voice.
so on the spot.
It's an emotional voice.
It was an emotional voice.
All right.
I think we had reviews, didn't we, Nick?
We do. Great podcast by the Danny Wang episode was off-putting. The first reflex was to attack rather than try to understand. He's talking about McDonald's as it relates to systemizing your company, allowing it to run smoother while scaling. Better systems equal happier clients and better products. And I don't understand the hate. Also, why is it hard to understand that a business can be diverse in its operations, offering design-only services, GC services, and client-side services? Honestly, I think you guys were outclassed here by someone who's thinking bigger. 5-star review, though. I saw the 5-star and I read that into like they were gonna rave about us, but fair enough. That's the opinion of De Filiosi. I feel like I pronounced that right.
It's close, yeah.
But it was a tough one. I think we continue to be on the same page that it didn't go the way that we had hoped it would, and we wanted to unpack it, and learn more. And unfortunately, it just didn't seem to go that way.
And we are not podcasters. I know we've been doing it for years, but we're just dudes.
Yeah, we're just
So
dudes.
yeah, if we didn't handle it right, that's reality.
Yeah, we're just dudes. I got another one I'll read. I started listening about 6 months ago. I've really enjoyed listening and hearing your love and enthusiasm for the craft. I'm a career and technical educator teacher. I teach family and consumer sciences. I teach everything from life skills to fashion and interior design. I do have hobbies that include woodworking, and I just want to say that I love your advocacy you have for your craft. That enthusiasm spills over into career and tech ed areas. I also love the way that you discuss the different aspects of your profession and as a business owner. Your discussions on how you're pushing yourselves to be the best craftsman is something that anyone can aspire to. Thank you guys for your inspiration and your wit. You all have the highlight of my week. Love the intro too. One last thing, your episode with Danny Wang was a great topic of discussion between my 14-year-old son and myself. There is a big mindset difference between the generations. It was really evident in that episode too. I felt it was important for him to see the importance of a true craft side of the industry and not just the flash and slick perspective. I enjoy the dialogue. Glad you posted it. I would never hire him because quality is important to me. Thank you for your advocacy and keep up the great work. From Andrea. It's awesome. Andrea, I'm actually intrigued by the career and technical education. So hopefully you're listening to this. And if you are, shoot us an email or actually a DM on Instagram. I'd love to get you on the podcast and get some feedback or talk about being a career in, what was it? Technical educator. I think that'd be cool.
That's right. You're not going to read the sweet timbre of Tyler's voice. That's it. Yeah.
All right.
Sweet timber.
And the other one is sausage making. Those
Well,
are
we
the
read the
5-star
sausage.
reviews.
We read the sausage making one.
Oh, did we?
I think so. First, to address the title, I take issue with the listener who finds Tyler's voice, I forget how to say that word, aberrant.
Thank you.
Everyone is
About
entitled to their
time.
opinion, but that listener is categorically wrong. Thank you guys for creating a great podcast. Listening and learning from other people in the trains is incredibly valuable. Sometimes just as confirmation that others encounter similar highs and lows. Please keep up the good work. Man, I'm struggling with this one. Please keep up the hard work and great guests. Most of them are great. Danny Wang, no, not too much.